All right, so I'm here on Off Topic with Eran Thomson. He is the Joy Pusher. That's how you're known, and he is a writer of blog. He does podcasts. He's a founder of a handful of different things, but most recently the Song Saga game. We'll get into that. Marketer, you're a public speaker. How so? You do all these things. What kind of got you? Like, where was the start of this kind of whole enterprise is kind of like the wrong word for it, but it's a big, like, you have a lot that you do, and it's really cool stuff because it seems really positive and uplifting, and it just seems like a lot of fun. Like, you seem like you're that kind of person, like you enjoy things, and I wanted to know, like, when did this kind of start for you?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, the origin story of, it's almost like the origin of spirit or something, if you will. Like, I mean, I feel like, ever since, from when I was a young person, I always was very curious about lots of different things and wanted to
Mhm.
try different things. And I wasn't always good at everything I did, and I'm still not good at everything that I do. But I think there's a couple of things that come together. One is an innate curiosity about what's
Mm.
possible, combined with a real passion and enthusiasm for potential, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I just get really, really excited about ideas. Certainly, arguably to a fault, where I kind of jump into things sometimes before I've fully explored what's required to manifest them fully
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to the level and the way that I dream of instantly. But there's a long road between an idea and manifesting it in a meaningful way. So yeah, I think it's sort of in my nature, I guess, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, that's and it's interesting you say, like, um how it's kind of like that innate curiosity is something that you find in a lot of people, that you kind of, because I know for me, like, I try to do like a lot of different things, and like you said, like, not all of them I do very well, but it's one of those things where you find an interest and you go for it, or you see something that you're like, oh, I think I could like do something positive in that direction, and you want to do it. And it's kind of with a lot of people, they look at that as like stretching yourself and not necessarily being able to touch everything in a meaningful way. Have you found that, like, the more that you do, the less like focus is put on each thing, or do you feel like they all kind of help each other in a sense?
To a certain, I think the answer is probably both, but certainly, the more things that you try and do, the less attention and focus you can give them,
Sure,
and
yeah.
and then and things require attention and focus to work. And this has been a super hard lesson for me to learn in my career. And I would say that I've learned it the hard way, by trying to do too many things and doing
Hmm.
things that didn't always work out the way I'd hoped, or doing things that weren't playing to my skill set, right?
Yeah.
Just because you're excited about something and can do it
Right.
doesn't mean necessarily that you always should.
Hmm.
And one of the things that's really interesting about this moment in history, I think, is that we have so much instant and easy access to information that it's like, oh, I want to learn how to play guitar. I can get on YouTube and take guitar lessons, right? Oh, I want
Right.
to learn how to code. I can get on YouTube and start coding my own website. Now I'm coding my own website so I can learn how to do other things, and all of a sudden you can go down a rabbit hole
Right.
of actually, yes, you can find the answers and you can find the knowledge and the wisdom and teachers
Hmm.
to help you do anything,
Right.
but you didn't do your 10,000 hours, to use Malcolm Gladwell's term, or you
Yeah.
didn't, and so you're never going to be doing them to the level of expertise or confidence or success as someone who has made that their unique passion or their unique ability. I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Dan Sullivan. He's a business coach. His company is called
Mhm.
Strategic Coach, and he talks a lot about developing your unique ability. And I feel like, for most of my career, I've spent my time exploring and trying lots of different things. And I have found things I'm good at and things I'm great at and things I'm not good at and not great at. But what I'm starting to do now, finally, is really kind of take things off my plate, put some of that spotlight focus back onto the things that I know I can do to the top of my intelligence, to the top of my skill, and really bring those things to the world in a meaningful way and kind of see what happens.
Right. Yeah, and it's always a tough thing because like I know from my end, like I'm my day job teaching assistant, and I've been a football coach, swimming coach. Now I do this and do a few other things, and it's always like you always want to, the more that you like kind of take onto your plate, like just even like day to day, as like even when you're not running several different businesses or jobs or anything like that, it's that kind of idea of how do I be the best at each thing that I do, and how do I make a good impact. And it's tough when you get to a point where you feel like all those things are on a plate, and then like you said, you have to like scrape some of them off, and you're like, but I thought I could, I think I can do still more in that one, or I think I
Yeah,
can still do more in that one. And it's that tough decision of like
yeah.
what's going to get me to a certain spot that I want to be at.
Totally. Yeah, and it can be really heartbreaking, I think, if you've
Mm.
spent time and energy to get something onto your plate. You're like, hey,
Right.
I like this thing. I'm going to do this, whether starting a podcast or,
Yeah.
becoming a coach, like you said, any of the millions of things that interest
Right.
anyone listening, if you decide that's something I'm going to do and dedicate time, energy, and focus to, and then it becomes a thing, right? And then you realize, oh, no, I actually don't have the resources, time, energy to
Right.
take it to the level that I thought. For me, there was always in the early days, certainly in my career, there was a level of naivete
Hmm.
around what it actually takes to take something from an idea and manifest it into a real thing, and then nurture and grow that real
Hmm.
thing. It's real easy for imaginative, creative people to go, "Oh, this is a
Yeah.
cool idea, and I can see what it looks like in 5 years,"
Right.
or I can see what I think it will look like in a year, not realizing it's going to take 5 years to manifest that
Right.
one year vision. So
Right.
yeah,
And
it's hard.
especially when you start, like, because for me in this, like I know like when you're starting out things, it's like there is that cost to starting, like whether it's equipment, people, like whatever it is, or an event, or
Mhm.
supplies, like whatever it is, like that you're starting, it's that cost.
Yeah,
And right in the beginning you're like, oh, this will pay for itself, or this will get to that point. And then like you said, you're thinking 5 years ahead, and the day to day is almost like it's like a totally different animal. It's a totally different job than what the actual job is, like trying to plan out that day to day or manage that day to day. um
totally.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's an it's an interesting thing trying to uh and it's one of those things that I've like gotten to that point too, so I understand like that kind of spread thin.
Yeah,
um
there's like it's like in a bad investment, the sunk cost theory.
right.
Like I put money in, it's the stock is tanking,
Right.
but if I take it out, then it can't go up. So I'll just leave
Right.
it in there and keep losing money versus going, okay, you know what? I've invested all this time and energy in this thing, but I can see now that it's not going to serve me, or that I won't be able to do it to a level of excellence that I wish I could. So I'm just going to pull out and write all that off, and I'm in
Yeah.
a stage now with one of my businesses where I'm looking at that going, it's like painful to rip that band-aid off, but sometimes
Right.
you just have to, I don't know.
Yeah. It's tough to find that like wisdom, like that foreseeable like notion, because in your heart you're always like, oh, there's still a chance, there's still like that belief, but it's hard to take that like heart out of it a little bit and be able to
Yeah.
like and just be like you said, rip off the band-aid.
And also like the other thing too, I think is, is can that can that feel like failure? Right. Definitely sometimes, like if you spend a lot of time and energy on something and you come to that realization of, okay, I need to refocus and prioritize and put
Right.
other things at the top of the list. So that means that I'm either going to abandon this, or I'm going to try and give it away, or just ignore it, or let it
Hmm.
fizzle out and die on its own. But,
Right.
there's that sense of like, okay, have I failed at this? And that can be that can be really powerful in a bad way, because it make it, people don't want to
Yeah.
lose that investment that you talked about, and you kind of go,
Right.
oh, I'm just going to stay in this thing and keep being more frustrated and annoyed and tired and exhausted and
Yeah.
not succeeding. So yeah, I
And
appreciate it.
and especially if like your mindset I feel like for a lot of people in that moment, the mindset can almost go the wrong way. Like you were like kind of saying, it can be that start of like a second guessing of like ideas. You failed at one thing. Where does
Mm,
like what happens next? Oh, I came up with another really good idea or another idea that I want to do. Should I even bother starting it because it might end up the same way? So I think that it in mindset is a lot of that outlook on whether or not it's a true failure. And I think looking at it like a failure is also that kind of negative way that things can move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're learning, then it's not a failure, right?
Right.
If you
Yeah.
if you're and if you learning and you can apply what you learned
Right.
to your next thing, then it's definitely not a failure. There's
Right.
some quote I heard about. I might get the numbers transposed. I'll do my best to remember. It's basically something like 90% of people who start a business for the first time fail.
Hmm.
Um, but um, 90% of people who start a business for the second time succeed, but only 10% of people try a second time. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like you get burned once, you're like, that's it. I'm never
Yeah.
doing that again. Like I don't want to
Right.
experience that pain or
Right.
that potential sensation of failure. You know. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a
No,
great book called. Oh, sorry to interrupt. I was going to say there's a great book called The
yeah.
E Myth. Have you heard of that book or read that book?
No, I have not.
The E-Myth is it's a book that's been around for a while. I can't remember the author's name, but it's a very popular business book. But one of the things it talks about that really struck me when I first read it was whatever it is that you're into or think you're great at, like especially if you have a job, like if you've done the same job for a long time and you think you're great at that job, it's really easy at some point in your career to be like, you know what? I'm smarter than my boss. I'm smarter than these dimwits I work with. I'm going to
Right.
start my own company, right?
Hmm.
And I had a taste of this. So like my early career was in advertising as a creative. So I was a copywriter and then a creative director in advertising agencies. And I hit that point in my career where I was like, you know what?
Hmm.
I can start my own agency. And through a series of serendipitous events, I had the opportunity to do that. And the minute we started our own agency and got past the fun bit of like naming our business and rebranding our business and building
Yeah.
our website and doing all the cool stuff, it was like, oh, I don't know a lot about how to run an agency because all I ever had to do as an employee was my one job, copywriter or creative director. I didn't
Sure.
have to be an account director. I didn't have to be new business. I didn't have to be
Right.
strategy. I didn't have to be CEO, CFO, CMO, right? I didn't have all these
Right.
hats I wasn't wearing that I didn't
Right.
really understand and appreciate the value of until I had to wear them all. Right.
Right.
And that's what the E Myth is about. It talks about
Okay.
how if you're going to start an idea or start a business, one of the things that you can do to make sure that your plate doesn't feel so overloaded and crowded to the point you just want to scrape everything off it is
Yeah.
plan out what are the roles and responsibilities that that business will need when it looks the way that you want to look in 5 years, 10 years, or when you want to exit. And then once you understand what all the hats are, you can then start extrapolating them as you grow and bringing more people into the business so that you eventually get that back to that place where you can focus on the thing that you are great at, right?
Huh.
And
Yeah,
that's,
that's really interesting.
if people clock that, it kind of help alleviate some of the fear and anxiety around and the overwhelm of trying to do everything yourself when you're first starting out.
Yeah, because that's actually a really interesting thing because I feel like it that's super helpful just like when just in my head when I'm thinking about things. Um, because it's really tough to picture exactly how everything will shake out in like a 3 to 5 year span.
Yeah.
And it's definitely helpful when somebody like I get whoever wrote the email is there to help like uh with that kind of idea of making sure that you're thinking about the overarching picture rather than just like
Yeah.
your picture of it. And because especially with I know with a lot of creative people, um it's really easy to see it just as you want it to be. um and and until like that first strike of reality, it's really it's like that like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. but
This
but
wasn't what I had planned.
yeah. But so
Excuse me. Excuse me for 1 sec. I just got to
yeah.
get power. Hold on 1 sec.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So yeah. Anyway.
um So coming out of our little break here, we we can talk about um your new game that's coming out, Song
Okay.
Saga. Uh, I watched your video, like your um like your presentation video that you had on YouTube or on your website.
Okay.
And it sound it, like to me it was it. I'm a musician and I'm like a big music guy, you know. So to me, I was like, oh, this would be a really cool thing to like bring to like a party of just like handful of friends you're sitting around and after you like after the years of just playing like Cards Against Humanity and like
Yeah.
what do you meme and all that stuff and
Yep.
playing drinking games for the 100th millionth time. um
Yeah.
like this is like a really cool refreshing like way to interact with people. um and I thought it was really cool and I was curious and just like kind of how that developed like initially for you. Like what
Y-
was there like a spark or did it kind of develop from like a few different things? Like what was kind of going on?
the origin story of Song Saga. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, hey, thanks for checking out the video and getting into it. I appreciate your
Yeah.
feedback. You like the idea. It is so the way we talk about Song Saga is, it's the party game for adults that lets you take a musical trip down memory lane,
Hmm.
and part of it is using music as a powerful mnemonic device that sparks memory of moments and um, um, moments that and memories that have meaning to us.
Yeah.
And part of it is also just that the byproduct of the game is that intimate connection that comes from sharing yourself authentically with the people that you're playing with. And it's just so beautiful to watch people
Yeah.
play this game together. Because in one of our very first play testing groups with the very first prototype, I took it on a boys' weekend. It was like an annual ski trip that a bunch of us go on,
Mm.
and they all love Cards Against Humanity. I was the one that turned them all onto Cards Against Humanity,
Oh
and
no,
so they're
yeah.
every year they're like, "Make sure you bring cards. Make sure you bring cards." I'm like, yeah, yeah, I will, I will. And so the night before or the day before we left to go on this ski trip, the first prototype showed up,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
printers, and I brought it down and I put it on the table, like in front of like the fireplace next to
Yeah.
Cards Against Humanity. And I was gonna tell them all like, hey, check it out, this is a game I made. And then I was like, actually, I'm not gonna say anything, I'm just gonna like use this as my first focus
Right.
group. and and so, the whole weekend I was just waiting for someone to like be like, hey, we should play cards, or
Yeah,
play this
yeah, yeah.
game. And finally, like on the second or third night, one of the guys was like, all right, we're playing Cards Against Humanity. And another friend of mine was like, picks up the box, and he's like, hey, what's this? He's like, oh, this looks cool. And he's reading the back, he's like, how the plays on the back of the box, and he's
Yeah.
reading the back like, hey, we should play this. And I was like, yes. I was like, all right, like I don't care what happens, I've already won the
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
the box copy worked. It made people want to play. What more can I
Yeah.
ask for? You know, and then one of the guys was like, all right, we'll play it for like an hour, but then we're gonna play Cards Against Humanity.
Right, yeah.
And to make a long story short, we played it till like 3 in the morning. And I'm texting the whole night with my wife going, you're not going to believe it. They love it. They're having so much fun.
Yeah.
But the connection thing, what sparked this memory for me was that around the connection. And this group of guys, some of them have known each other for 20 years. Most of them have known each
Hmm.
other for 20 years. And they were saying things like, dude, I've known you for 20 years and I never knew this about you. How could I not know this about you? And this was happening all night long. So
Yeah.
people were like, I think one of the cool things about the game is it kind of organically surfaces those moments, right? And then gets you to a place where you can share them, and everyone just gets kind of goes, oh wow, this is
Yeah.
really, really cool, it's really special. So anyway, to answer your question about the origin story, um the it start I think I mean, the very going way back to the very beginning, it started with you know dance parties for two in the lounge room. My wife and I,
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
not wanting to leave the house, but feeling like we got some dance in our pants,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we sort of created this game using streaming music platforms where like Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, like where
Yeah.
we would kind of go, I'm going to play a song. If you think it's awesome, then I get to play another song. If or if you think you can play a better next song. So it's sort of like a DJ game, right? Like
Yeah,
who
yeah,
can play
yeah.
the next coolest song. And if you play a bad song, then I get my turn back, and it was like
Nice,
it
yeah.
became this thing that had like a whole Google sheet of convoluted rules that only she and I would ever be able to like understand, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sparked for me the idea that there was a way to gamify um, music apps, right? You know,
Mhm.
Steve Jobs, like 10 years ago, famously said, "Hey, we've got 1,000 songs in our pocket now with the first
Yeah.
iPod." Now we have all the songs, right?
Right.
60 million songs are in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
pocket
yeah,
if you've
yeah.
got Spotify. And it was like, wow, why hasn't anyone gamified this? How could we do that?
Yeah.
So that was kind of percolating in the back of my brain, and I hadn't figured out how to do it,
Yeah.
but I knew that there was something in that. And then fast forward a little while, and we were at a friend's house for a weekend, and we were, after dinner having some wine, sitting around and shooting the breeze and just chit chatting. And it just so happened that that weekend was the anniversary of my father-in-law's graduation, or he died, and it's the
Mm.
anniversary of his death. We call it graduation. And so he moved on, and it
Mhm.
was the anniversary of that weekend. And my wife was like, "Hey guys, if it's not too weird, would you mind if I played a song that reminds me of my dad?"
Mhm.
And we're like, "Yeah, go for it, cool."
Right. Yeah.
So she played a Beatles song, and she told this great story about how she bonded with her father over a shared love of music in his wood shop, where he kept his records and his stereo, because her mom didn't want them playing loud music in the house and driving everyone crazy. So they were
Yeah.
dancing around in the sawdust, like, and it's a sweet,
Right.
sweet memory.
Yeah.
And then another one of our friends was like, "Well, hey, you know what? I have a song that reminds me of my dad." And so they played that song, and then we went to this weird place, or not weird, but
Right.
really
Right.
intimate place, where she shared a story of growing up in a super religious household, almost cult like, and feeling like she needed to escape her family as a teenager
Right.
and running away and find herself. And she played REM's "Losing My Religion."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then our other friend was like, "Well, I have a song that reminds me of my dad," and he played like a kid's bath time song that was like, "I love bath time's fun, scrubby
Yeah.
WW everyone," And then I did the same thing, and we were like, "Wow, that's really cool." And then we did it again on another topic, and we kind of spent the whole night doing that, and it was so fun and brought out so many great moments and memories that we would never have otherwise shared with each other.
Yeah.
And I remember going home at the end of the weekend going, "This is the nugget of the idea."
Yeah.
And from there, like, it went from that weekend to our first prototype. It took a month,
Wow.
um, and then to get it into the real world in a meaningful way took a year.
Right.
But that's how it started.
That's
And
really interesting. That
yeah,
that's quick. That's a really quick turnaround for like an interest. Like, so I wanted the first thing that came to my mind when I like was like when you were talking about it, um, is the first memory that I can have of like my family's first vacation is
mhm.
directly related to Dancing Queen by ABBA.
Oh yeah, great.
So it was when I was like super young, like 5 or 6 years old, maybe even younger. I was probably 4 or 5, maybe whatever it
Yeah,
was. And I can't even remember where we were on vacation, but I remember like walking across the sand, and that whole vacation, my sisters, I have two older sisters, and the entire vacation, all they played was Dancing Queen by ABBA. Like that was like
right. And it drove you
so,
crazy.
and it drove me crazy. Now, I mean, I love ABBA, and like I love ABBA, and
Yeah,
I'm not afraid to admit it. Um, but that like immediately when like when you were talking about it, that was like my first reaction because that song is so ingrained with me
yeah,
remembering that such a young age memory. And I was like, how cool would it be to like explore that with some of my friends that I've, like you said, people that I've known for 12, 15 years at this point.
mm,
And how fun it would be to have like something real. Like it's not just us like goofing off. Like it's
yeah.
us like having fun, but like really having those like interesting moments where we truly get to know each other a little bit more. And it just came to me as like such like a cool idea in that sense. And I
Yeah,
was
thanks.
really, yeah. And so basically what I want to know is where can I get it, how much, and basically how many people can I play with?
Great. These are awesome questions. So yeah, well, yeah, I love that experience, and just I'll say that, like, it does drive that meaningful connection, but
Yeah.
it also, there's plenty of room to goof around.
Right, right, right.
Like that same boys' weekend I was telling you about, we were dancing on the furniture, like, so
Right.
so I think
Yeah,
somewhere on our website it says singing, dancing, and air guitar optional,
right.
but probable. right?
Yeah.
Like it can happen. Doesn't
Yeah,
have to.
yeah.
You don't have to sing. A lot of people are like, oh, Song Saga, do I have to sing? I don't want to sing. You don't have to sing, but you might
You
be
will.
inspired to.
You
Yeah.
will, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so Song Saga is, like I said, it took us a year to kind of get it to market. It's out there
Yeah.
now. We got it out just before Christmas, which was nice. We didn't really have a time to market it properly for Christmas, but at least people who were aware of it could get it.
Mhm.
The easiest place to buy it is on our website, obviously
Yeah.
song-saga.com, but it is also available on Amazon.com in the US.
Awesome.
And it's also available on amazon.com.au here in Australia. And we'll be adding, more markets as have time to put them onto my plate of things to do.
Perfect. Yeah.
But yeah, so song-saga.com. And in fact, we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I wanted to extend an offer for you to give a game away to your listeners if you're open to that idea.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah.
and if that sounds good, then I set up a domain or a URL for your listeners. It's just song-saga.com/off topic. So
Perfect.
if you
Yeah.
go there, there's a little form you can fill in, and you can maybe win a game.
Oh, that would be perfect. So
Yeah.
it's song-saga.com
Yep. Slash off topic.
off topic.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, hopefully somebody will get one.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm still in the beginning, so
Yeah.
whether the listeners participate is still up in the air. I'm
That's right. It's
getting
about intention.
right. But
And then
hopefully
it's
good.
in the US it's $24.99 most places that you would buy it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
In Australia it's $39.99 because the Australian dollar's not worth as much. Um, and we say it's for ages 13 and up, but I also like to tell people that Song Saga is the game that gets better with age. Because the longer you live, the more music you'll have heard and stories and
Right.
experiences you'll have had to share. I hope so.
Yeah.
And there's no real limit to how many people can play. Like you can play it with one friend. That
Yeah.
certainly happened. Um, I sort of feel like, I mean, we played. I think the biggest group that I've played it with is maybe 11 people.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, and it kind of go. It can sometimes veer off into the goofy
Yeah. Yeah.
more party
Yeah.
side at that
Right.
crowd level. We've also played Song Saga at pubs as sort of like a live event, and that's been really fun
Huh.
too, where audience members come up and share a song and a story, and then kind of compete with each other to see who has the best set. Song and
Oh,
story is what we call a set.
that's really
Um,
interesting too. Yeah.
yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff that we're working on with the game right now. Live events. We're considering the idea of doing a Song Saga podcast. Um, I'm
Hmm.
really excited about trying to create a Song Saga web series or TV show where we kind of get people on to play and talk about their
Yeah.
experiences and share the songs and stories that have meaning to them.
That would be really cool. Because I can
Yeah.
just imagine that would be like a really cool opportunity to just like kind of relax and like just talk, because that's
Mm.
I mean that's what I like about a lot of different podcasts is that idea of just like talking. It's not so much about like what year did you do this, so what were the, you know what I mean? It's like having that conversation, and what better way than to add some music in and some
Yeah.
laughs, some memories, some good times,
Yeah. Totally.
um but
But
speaking
also
of
it
pot.
helps.
Oh,
Oh, so I
go
was gonna
ahead,
say the
go
last
ahead,
thing
go ahead.
before
Yeah.
you move on is like
Yeah.
it helps you remember too that life wasn't always this boring, right? Like
Right.
you're like, oh yeah, I've had an interesting life. I've done
Yeah.
some cool things. I've had some experiences. You kind of
Yeah.
like forget because they just sit there, in the back of your memory dormant until a song triggers them or one of the cards in the box triggers them. And I
Yeah.
think that's especially right now in these horrible COVID times that we're in, it's a really nice byproduct of the game for people to have that kind of realization like, okay, I've been cooped up in the house for a year, but I won't
Right.
always be, and I wasn't always, and life will
Yeah,
be okay.
I know. And oh, that was one thing that I thought about a few weeks ago. I was watching a show and a movie, or like whatever I was watching, and I was just watching, like it was crowds of people in the movie or the show, whatever it was, and I was like, that seems so like not possible.
Yeah.
Like and it's like one of those things that it's not like it's been that way for my whole life. So it's like, why am I looking at this show and going, oh my god, there's so many people there, none of them are wearing masks? Like it's like
Look,
that thought
yeah,
process.
yeah,
It's like stop, stop,
yeah,
stop, that's not reality. Like
yeah.
But life goes on, you know. Everything
We
will be
hope.
okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Um, but so we were talking about podcasts. You do have your own podcast, um, and it's the one word suggestion podcast.
Mm.
Um, Tell me a little bit about that because I'm like I read the description and I was like, huh, this sounds like it would be a fun thing to do.
Thanks. Yeah. So the One Word Suggestion podcast is sort of well, basically, it's a podcast that talks about how uh, improvisation as a skill set can be a powerful tool, not just for your personal life, but for your professional life as well. Right. And it's so one of the businesses that I set up here in Australia is a business called PowerProv, and PowerProv is a corporate training business that helps people um, use the power of improvisation and to develop skills like learning how to yes and um, actively listen, communicate, and collaborate more efficiently and more effectively, innovate more efficiently and
Mm,
effectively, and help instill what we call in improv an ensemble mindset in their business, right? And an
gotcha.
ensemble mindset is really simply described as having each other's backs, but it can go much deeper than that. So if you think about um, what it's like to walk into work every day, if you can walk into the office every day and trust, believe, and accept and know in your heart that everyone in your in your team will support your ideas, actions, choices, and decisions no matter what, and do everything they can to make you look good because they know if you look good, you all look good,
Right.
and to embrace opportunity, failure as an opportunity to learn and grow and pivot and change. These are all things that come out of having that improvisational mindset. And also, wouldn't that be a wonderful place to show up for work every day,
Right.
right? And so we, as in our corporate training business at PowerProv, that's what we do. And the One Word
Gotcha.
Suggestion podcast is it's designed to be, well, part of one of the things that makes it super unique is it's only 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
So they're really bite-sized nuggets of hopefully information that listeners can use and start to apply in their lives immediately without even having taken an improv class. And the origin of the name and the idea comes from, if you've ever been to have you ever been to an improv show?
No, but I know it's like, all right, everybody give me one word. One word.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's the classic. Every improv show starts with the performers on stage asking the audience for a one-word suggestion.
Yeah.
The most common one is always dildo, and they have to ask
Yeah.
for a second one. But and then they build a show off that. And so I was like, all right, well, what if I could do that as a, as a in a business podcast? Would that
Yeah.
work? And so the one-word suggestion podcast is a byproduct of that experiment. And I told myself that I would do an episode a week for a year. I think I've done 48, and then COVID hit and kind of threw my production schedule completely out of whack. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I've got about 10 more to do to kind of catch up. But it's been a really fun experience to do it. It's done pretty well on some charts, but you never really know, do you?
Yeah.
With the podcast, who's
Right.
listening?
Yeah.
um,
I know. That's
but
why I try to just keep track of like I don't even look on like Apple or Spotify what my numbers are because it's like as long as the numbers on my like analytics say certain things,
yeah,
I just keep track of that. Because it like you said, it's what it all the numbers are kind of weird anyway. It's the
yeah,
way that they measure them is weird. Like they all have different like times that they measure a listen by and like all that stuff. It's
yeah.
really
I think like,
but
with a podcast like yours and a podcast like One Word Suggestion, the content is more or less evergreen. So
yeah.
as long as it's discoverable, you know, you never know when or why people are going to find it or how they're going to
Right.
find it,
Yeah,
and
what person gets them there, you know, like I could have you on and more people are going to listen just that
yeah.
episode and then never listen again or they listen, they like it. They think
I
I'm
have this funny thing with One Word Suggestion. The funny thing that happens to me a lot is people go, "Hey man, I heard your podcast," and I was like, "Oh cool. Which episode did you like?" And they're like, "Oh, I listened to them all." Right? Because to 3 minutes,
Right.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
you can listen to them all in a in a long walk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's a lot of my voice. I don't know how you did it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And yeah, no, that's I mean, some of mine are I've got my shortest one is like 40 minutes and that was like fine and that was good, but my longest one was like an hour and 35, an hour 40 minutes. And when I was doing it, I kept looking at the time. I was like, nobody's going to listen to this. It's so long. But it
Hmm.
ended up being one of the most listened to just because the person and that I was having conversation with was a really good conversation. So it's always like that weird,
Yeah,
like
you never can
you
tell.
never, yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Mm.
Um, but going with the power prov, so where did you start out like in your like were you an improv person like when like years ago, or do you still do improv, or like where did the improv come from?
Yeah. So,
Origin story again.
origin story. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, what happened with me with the way I discovered improv, right? And there's a lot of people that have opinions about improv and improv shows in particular. But for
Hmm.
me, what happened was I was still living in Sydney, but I had just gotten out of the agency that I was talking about earlier that I'd set up,
Hmm.
and I just kind of left that, and I was exploring the idea of trying to work in um, entertainment a bit more. And did your camera just go off?
Yeah, it just something with my Bluetooth uh messed it up, and it just got
That's
confused
right.
for a second.
I'll
So I
start
apologize.
over so you can edit from here.
Oh,
Cut.
thank
So
you. Yeah.
so anyway, so the origin story of how I discovered improv was basically um, when I had left my agency and was trying to figure out what was next. One of the things that I was exploring was um, entertainment, screenwriting, film and television development, and I spent a little bit of time doing that. And one of the things that came about while I was exploring that was I went to Los Angeles to write a screenplay for a director there. And so I was in LA for 3 months,
Mm.
and I knew of improv, but I didn't know anything about it. Right,
Yeah.
I was just aware of it as a thing. Right,
Right.
but I knew enough. I guess I knew enough about it to suspect that by taking a class, it would make me a better writer
Mm.
and maybe help me get better at working with actors in my own directing work. And so and I've always loved comedy and thought I was funny. And, I'm that person that my friends often think is funny. So I went into improv thinking like, I'm going to rule improv. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be awesome at this.
Right.
And the very first thing you learn in an improv class is that improv is not about being funny. It's not about trying to be funny.
Mm.
Improv is about learning to be present in the moment and authentic and respond genuinely to what's being said and the offers that you get from the people
Yeah.
around you. And if you try and be funny, you ruin it for everyone, right? And so I was that guy. Every class has an asshole, and I was the asshole for my first two classes until I
Yeah.
realized, like, oh, this is not what I thought, and
Right.
now I need to just reset, kind of beginner's mind, know nothing, show me what this is. And
Yeah.
I never really aspired to be in front of camera or be a performer or get on stage and do shows. That wasn't what I loved about improv. What I fell in love with was those soft skills of learning to listen, eye contact, body language, learning to yes and,
Yeah.
learning to communicate and collaborate, and all the things I talked about when I was talking about power prof. So
Mm.
for me, like that was the juice, and I feel like I'd discovered a key to improving how I interacted with my fellow humans, and I
Yeah.
wanted more of that. But my job writing the script came to an end, and I went back to Sydney. And in Sydney, Australia, at the time, there weren't any improv schools teaching at the level that I had had when I was in LA. So I took
Gotcha.
classes at the Second City. My teachers were people that and recognize from television. They were real people doing the real work, playing at the top of their game
Yeah.
and trying to get to the, maybe they were B
Right.
list, but they're trying to get to A list, and that was like, okay, this is the real deal. And I took classes at the Groundlings as well. Same thing. I came back to Australia and it was like just a whole different level. So
Gotcha.
I was like, so very selfishly, and again, with much naivete and optimism, I decided to fly some teachers out that I had met um, from LA to Sydney to do a weekend workshop. I was like, yeah, this would be a great way. Maybe I can introduce some of my friends and peers to this art form, and hopefully they'll get
Hmm.
some value out of it. And I'll put on a weekend workshop.
Yeah.
So I spent a ton of time and energy, getting that organized,
Yeah.
um, and so what happened is I had a teacher come out who did a weekend workshop in Sydney, a weekend workshop in Melbourne, And
Mhm.
then to help underwrite the cost of that, I had been frantically going around trying to sell a corporate training workshop because I had discovered that that was a
Gotcha.
thing that you could do. And I managed to sell one to Cisco, the big
Yeah, yeah.
telecommunication company. So Cisco booked our very first corporate training workshop, and that helped soften some of the financial damage of this endeavor. And and so yeah, to make a long story very short, it was very fun, very successful, and very exhausting. And by the end of it, I was like, I'm never doing this again. It's be way better use of my time and money just to fly back to LA and take more classes. But then something really, I call it horribly magical, happened, which was that on the last day of the last workshop, unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to them, two women were having a conversation about the experience they were having in the workshop, and I was right behind them.
Mm,
And they were talking about like, oh, like I've never had an experience like this before. I feel like I'm a completely different person. I'm gonna can't wait to try these things out with my husband, with my family, and they had
wow.
this completely
Yeah.
transformative experience similar to the one I had my first time in LA. And I was like, oh man, like if I can bring this kind of experience to people in the world, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that worth putting more energy into?
Yeah.
And so I kept going. Um, and then someone who had been to one of those first workshops came up to me and was like, "Hey, man, I just moved here from New York, and I used to teach improv. And if you ever want to do like a longer class, I'd love to teach."
Oh,
And
that's cool. Yeah.
so to make a very long story short, we ended up setting up a school, and the school's called Laugh Masters Academy.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it was kind of the first long form Chicago style, American style improv comedy school in Australia. And off the back of
Wow.
that, Power Prov was born. Right. And
Wow.
so I've spent most of my time on the Power Prov side, and other teachers and people kind of run the school. But yeah, but that's how I got into it. And it is a great skill. And I think, if any of your listeners take one thing away, improv isn't about trying to get on stage and be funny.
Mhm.
It's just about developing those skills that are going to make you a better human, and they will serve you for the rest of your life. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and I love watching improv, like professional, like the comedians that like they got brought up doing improv. It's one of my favorite things because I love how quick like you get trained to
Yeah.
be, like how quick you have to be. And I know of like one. There's a Netflix special, Middle Ditch and
Yeah.
Schwartz, and they're so funny. And
Yeah.
but the way that they create around them, like this whole story,
Yeah.
and like trying to remember all the people that they're coexisting as, like, is
It's
really
hard.
yeah.
They actually make a mistake and they just deal with it. Do
They
you know,
just
you know
do
the episode I'm
it.
talking about? Yeah, like
Yeah. Oh yeah, I
they
don't
get a name wrong. Are you
know. Yeah.
Sarah or Diana? Yeah, I don't know, whatever it was. Yeah,
Whatever. Yeah.
but those guys are great, and I love that Netflix gave them the opportunity
Yeah.
to share improv with the world in that way. Like, there'll always be people who don't think that's real,
Right.
right? Like real entertainment or real theater. But
Sure. Yeah.
but one of the hardest things to do is capture the energy and the quality of a performance of a good improv show on film. There's been
Yeah.
lots of people who have tried. Most famously, I think UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade, did it many, many years ago with ASCAT, which was sort of like they
Okay.
were trying to make it a TV show. It's ASCAT with like I think 3 or 4 S's. They're still
Gotcha.
you can find them on YouTube. They're great to watch. Amy Poehler, all those people are now famous
Gotcha.
stars.
Okay. Okay.
But
Yeah.
it's just hard to get it. And I think Middleditch and Schwartz with Netflix's help, they managed to do
Yeah.
it in a pretty effectively.
Yeah. It was. That was one of those things because I watched like a few different improvs, like videos on YouTube and all that stuff. But then I watched that and I was belly laughing like the entire time,
Yeah,
just because
that's good.
to me it was just like impressive. Like
Yeah,
even if like some of the like it doesn't make sense like narratively, none of it
yeah,
makes sense. But the fact that they're able to like bring you through this and still keep you entertained and involved, like it's a cool. I think they do it really well.
yeah.
And
It's pretty amazing. Yeah,
um and then obviously like improv like in movies and stuff where you get your improv like oriented people on comedies and they get the reins to say stuff during scenes and just
yeah.
nail
It's incredible.
it.
Yeah, and like I mean, you can't. I don't think you can work in LA as an actor without improv training anymore. It's sort of like
Yeah.
become mandatory. And there's lots of examples of like what am I trying to think of? Oh, I can think of two. So the first one is like Bridesmaids. Everyone in
Mm,
Bridesmaids is an improvised
right, yeah,
and what a and a great it's a great film, and it allows like they're all working from a script. The story has a spine, but
yeah,
if you have good improvisers and a good director that gives them the freedom to explore and play,
yeah,
they heighten and keep heightening the jokes until
right,
they get to a point where it's just absurdly ridiculous.
right.
And another great example of that is 40-Year-Old Virgin,
Yeah.
which is another great film, right? Have you
Yeah,
seen that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, it's
It's a
great.
great film. And I got a hold of the screenplay for that and I read it. I was like, this isn't that funny. Like the premise is
Yeah,
funny, right? But the script isn't that funny.
yeah,
And then but you can just see like someone going, yeah, but it's Steve Carell and Will Ferrell. And,
right,
like, it's going to be awesome. Don't worry,
right. Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you
yeah.
watch the outtakes and you're like, yeah, they're just, as
They're
long as you
just
have the
messing around
spine and
it.
the through line, they can take it to the level.
Yeah, and the movie The Other Guys was a similar one like that. Uh, and because one of the best bits of the whole movie is Michael Keaton as the um, like the police chief, and he keeps making references to TLC, the band,
Oh yeah.
regardless. And that was something that Michael Keaton just came up with on the spot, and they
Right.
ran with it. But it
Yeah.
became a whole bit through the whole thing. He did it in like the beginning of the shoot with one of the scenes, and they
Right.
just like ran with it for the whole movie. And it
I
was
didn't know that.
yeah, and it's one of the
That's
best
cool.
bits of the whole movie.
There you go.
You quoting
Improv.
TLC? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Don't go chasing waterfalls. Come on, Chief. You're
Yeah.
quoting TLC. I don't know what you're
Huh?
talking about. Yeah, but it's great stuff. Yeah. I know I've always been very envious because I'm like that overthinker. So I could probably use some classes to like
Yeah.
try to
Oh,
get more.
it's great
Yeah,
for that. Yeah, it
yeah,
gets you out of your head, right? Because
yeah,
if you're thinking, then you're not listening, right? And
right,
so if you're just present in the moment and actively listening and responding authentically to what's just been said, that's gold. That's where the gold comes from. And
right.
like the idea that a lot we always teach people in classes like just say the thing that feels right, don't
Yeah,
edit, right? We talk about auditing and editing, right, in
right,
terms of like behavioral science terms. Like auditing is being present and aware and clocking everything that's happening around you and listening and being in the moment.
yeah,
Editing is that voice in your head that's like, do I say that now, do I say this, is this funny, what if that's not funny, what if I say it
right,
and it's not, and it'll laugh, if they don't laugh then I'll look bad, if I look bad do they look bad, oh,
right.
I'll just sit here and keep my mouth shut, right? If you can get rid of that voice, or the id, ego, whatever you call it, if you can get rid of that voice in your head and just be present and spit out the first thing, it's almost always the perfect thing, right?
Yeah,
And if for some reason it isn't, you're surrounded on stage or in the office or wherever the context is by people who will take that and make it work. And that's the greatest thing about the ensemble philosophy, which I talked about earlier, right? No matter what happens, you trust, believe, know, and accept that the people around you will make you look good, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah. It's a
powerful.
yeah. It's definitely a big. It's like a big trust fall when it comes to. It's
Totally.
like yeah.
You said you're upstate New York. Where are you based? Where do you live?
Right around Schenectady.
Oh, right.
So it's yeah. So
Mm.
it's everybody. Some people go, oh yeah, okay, and some people go, don't know where that is. It's like 40 minutes north of Albany, like right, and then right near like Saratoga. And, um, but
I know about Schenectady because I mean I lived in New York for a while, but
okay,
also the way I first heard about Schenectady is a song, right? And I feel like it's a kid's song. Like, is it the
hmm,
that song Hello Mata, Hello
yeah,
Fada,
yeah,
here I am from Campo Nada or whatever it is?
yeah, yeah,
Isn't that isn't in the song that isn't the camp that he's talking about in Schenectady?
Oh, I have
Am I
no
am I
idea.
making things up?
I have no idea. I feel like I'm too far in to like know those like those kind of bits. Um,
Yeah, right. Because you're like it's too inside baseball,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't know.
Mm.
That'd be interesting for me to like look up. Huh?
I just remember like thinking
Yeah.
because it was just like such a funny sounding and cool. It would be an Indian name, right? Native American
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Indian name. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's up here. It's kind of like in Massachusetts where every other town is like a Native American
Yeah.
name of some sort. And Schenectady, people like don't think of it that way, but Schenectady is a Native American. It derived from a Native American name. Um, so it could, yeah, it could be 100 different things because we have like Sacandaga Lake, we have Oneida Lake, we have uh like 100 different lakes. But um, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if
Mm.
there was something in it because
Is there?
Schenectady is pretty big.
Yeah. There's a university there, right?
Yeah, Union College
Right. So
is the
there might
big
be an
one.
improv scene there. You never know.
Yeah, there could be. I know there's a few comedy clubs in like Saratoga. There might be one in there might be one in Schenectady, but a lot of them have moved to Saratoga because it's a little more uh for a while Schenectady wasn't the best place to be at night. So
Right.
uh so that's, I think a lot of places moved out of there, but now the last couple years it's been like getting a lot better. Um so maybe more places will move back in. Because ever since GE kind of took a back seat, because that GE was like Schenectady was GE.
The big
Um,
employer. Yeah.
yeah, and so it was a big deal when it was, but now the GE's kind of like not the big man on campus and like anymore in terms of what it means to like the American people because of how much they ship out.
Right.
Um,
I
it
think
kind of went downhill, but
I don't know if the song. I was just googling. I'm not sure if the song is the one I'm thinking of, but
okay.
the goodbye called by a song. There's a song called Schenectady by a guy called John Bryan, and the lyrics
Okay.
are: "There's a place I long to be, a certain town that's dear to me, home to Mohawks and GE. It's called Schenectady. I was born there and I'll die there. My first home I hope to buy there. Have a kid or at least try there. Sweet Schenectady. When I'm married and when I'm dead, upstate worms will eat my head. For every person that you know, once you say goodbye and go, think you'll see them soon and then no, you won't see them again. There's always the last time that you'll see everyone. There's always a never again. Schenectady. I don't know. I'm sure I butchered that lyrics, but anyway, it exists.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's
Yeah,
a song that
yeah,
will
I
remind you
get
of
it.
this podcast.
There you, there you go.
Yeah,
For the
funny.
never again that you listen to it. Oh my
That's
god.
right.
That's such a weird. Yeah, I get like, so there's like a lot of inspiration that you can get out of Schenectady because it's so historic.
Mm.
Um like there's like a house in like the Stockade area that all those buildings are probably anywhere between 150 and 300 years old. They just been renovated and stuff. It's really nice like spot. It really feels like colonial age. And there's a house there that like George Washington stayed in when he was in Schenectady for like a week or two. So that's like our little bit of like American history in that sense. But uh, it's really funny to me that somebody's like writing about it in such a heartfelt way.
Or maybe it was sarcastic. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
it
have to
could
listen
be.
to it.
Yeah, he could just be like Schenectady, like
Yeah. Oh God.
fuck
Yeah.
you guys.
Oh well.
But before I let you go, um just want to know if you could pick, let's say, if you could pick a song that you want somebody to listen to get like your personality, what would you, I know that's like a loaded question. But if you could pick one song for people to be like, oh, that's your song,
Oh wow.
what?
Okay. A, this is a great question. It's sort of like, in fact, there's a card in the box, right, which is
Sure.
um, theme song of your life, right?
Oh,
So it's
okay, yeah, yeah,
pretty close to what you're asking me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Look, okay, in the spirit of improv and responding to in the moment, and the first thing that comes to my mind is Africa Bambata, Planet Rock.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I got for you. The Soul
Perfect.
Sonic
Yeah,
Force. Yeah.
yeah. No,
How
I
about
love it.
you? I'll throw it back at you. What about for you?
Oh shit. Uh, okay. I would say it's probably. I'm trying to think of the name. It's just, see, this is what happens. It's just, the name is escaping me now. But for one that I can remember,
What's the
Um,
band? Maybe we can figure it out together or hum it or whatever.
oh, I'll go with "In My Life" by the Beatles
Oh, classic. Yeah.
because I just it's like one of those songs that a lot of people pick as like their song to remember somebody.
Right.
Um, but it's just such a kind of beautiful. It's just such a beautifully written song in the sense that it's just all about like that. Um, like you come across so many people in your life, and like there's always that one person that like really brings it all together for you and
Yeah.
makes everything gonna like seem like it's all one thing.
Mm.
um so I like that song a lot, and it was actually the first song I ever performed as a musician, like ever. So it has a
Wow.
lot of, it has
Great.
a yeah, it has a little like a loaded thing to me. Yeah, I was in middle
What?
school for 60s day for middle school. Me and one of my friends performed it.
That's so cool. So
Yeah.
what do you play? What's your instrument?
um I play. I started on piano when I was like 3 or 4. For school, growing up, I did saxophone, like tenor, alto, baritone. Then I learned guitar and drums along the way. Got ukulele. I play banjo a
Oh
little
man,
bit. Yeah.
did you do your own intro music for for the off topic podcast?
Yes, but I'm embarrassed to say I didn't play any instruments on it. I just used loops. I'm the
Oh
worst. I know.
man.
Well, I don't have a lot of like true recording equipment here.
Right.
Uh so that was kind of like it's using like a recording mic to record certain things just doesn't work. Um but I did have to like time it up, put it in the right rhythm, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I did use some of my music
Use your skills.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Awesome.
essentially it was a bunch of loops that I broke up and put together.
And are you still performing or playing music, or is that just was that a past life kind of thing?
No, I will. Without COVID, I it was pretty much weekly
Oh,
that
right
I was
on.
like gigging and stuff. Yeah, me and my one of my longtime friends, we started out just playing in his basement in like high school, and then over the years we just couldn't find a few other people to like solidify a band, and then we finally did it. So in the last couple of years we've been playing around and finally got like names for ourselves in the capital region as like a good cover band, which is which was a lot of fun. But
What's your band called?
Up the River.
Up the river.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Awesome.
we have videos on YouTube, but
Yeah, I'll go watch those videos
like,
then.
you'd be like, oh, he said he played all these instruments, but he's not playing them very well.
Come on, man. Anyone who's out there giving it, going for it, it gets my, full applaud,
Yeah.
applause. Like,
Well, and
yeah,
like,
like,
yeah, and half the time it's like, and it's so funny to me because I don't think I'm that great of a singer by any stretch of the imagination. I know I can like sing a tune, but um, it's so funny because I'm like I said before, I'm that overthinker. So
right,
until the gig starts, I'm like, why is anybody watching this? Like this just is like oh, we're gonna stink. My voice sounded awful earlier. Like I couldn't even
right,
warm up and like all this stuff. And then as soon as I start, it's like I wasn't even thinking about it.
right. Yeah. And also, how many like famous musicians are bad singers? Like,
Yeah.
is Bob Dylan a great singer? I don't know.
Oh
He's a
yeah, yeah,
great,
that's true.
great lyricist.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
don't know.
that's what he got. That's what he got recognized for. So I guess
Yeah.
that's the way that that is. Yeah.
Oh well.
But yeah, but thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It is I had a lot of fun. Um, so definitely go check out Song Saga. Check out your podcast, the One Word Suggestion podcast. Do you like when it's on like Spotify or Apple Music or Apple Podcasts? Is it abbreviated or is it the
No,
whole
no.
thing?
My podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's just one word suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll find it. It's the only one.
Yeah.
I
That's
was
what.
thinking of
Yeah.
calling it off topic, but
Oh, I saw there was like 100. Yeah.
yeah.
For the listeners, we had a we were laughing earlier because there's 100 different podcasts called Off Topic. So if anybody has a name that I can get off of this with something more interesting, go ahead. I'm not as creative with names.
I say go for it, man. It's a fame building device for you and
Oh,
maybe
true.
for her. So just call it off topic with Perry Ramsey with
Perfect.
music supplied by Up up the river, you know.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. It's just like it just keeps getting longer. The name just keeps getting
That's right.
special
Yeah,
guests include.
yeah. There you go. Who needs show notes? Just jam it all in the title.
Right. Perfect. Well, thank you so
Cool. Well,
much. Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
thank you,
go ahead.
Perry. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure chatting with you today, and I really enjoyed our conversation. So yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. And is there, so you have your website, aaronthomson.com, and that's where people can find everything?
Yeah, the best place to find out everything I'm into is my website. It's ERAN, and Thompson is a dry Thompson, no P. So yeah, feel free to pop by or check out what I'm up to. And obviously, if you any part of when we were talking about Song Saga sounds like fun to you, check that out at song-saga.com. And like we chatted about kind of in the middle of the podcast, if you want to try and win yourself a free game, then go to song-saga.com/off topic and you can enter to win there.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so
All right.
much again.
All right. Cheers, Perry. Nice chatting with you, mate.
Yeah, you too.
Bye bye.